Why Incident Management Matters. My name is Kat Amato, and I'm the Sales and Marketing Director at Coggno. I'd like to take a moment to thank our partner community who have invited their members and clients to attend today's event. Coggno partners with many different business segments to provide online training courses directly from their website so their members and clients have a convenient place to purchase the training they need. We have thousands of courses in virtually every business topic available in our marketplace, including HR, safety, software, business management, and personal development training, just to name a few of the topics available. So be sure to check out our website at Coggno.com to search all the available options. If you're not a Coggno partner, email me today at info@Coggno.com, and I'll send you information on how to sign up. It's an easy and completely free partnership, and it earns revenue for you as a partner as well. Today we have with us Eric Glass. Eric is a senior EHS advisor with UL, Workplace Health and Safety. UL is a global independent safety science company, and we're proud to have them as a Coggno author for safety-related topics. Eric has 18 years of risk management, loss control, and safety experience, and he's an OSHA outreach trainer and advises company on the design of advanced risk management and safety programs. So I'm going to turn the controls over to Eric now, and we'll go ahead and commence the webinar. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you very much for having me here today, and I look forward to present this topic to all of your members. Kind of want to give you a background of how this presentation came to be. For so long, we were finding that we had companies, client companies, that were doing health and safety very well from the standpoint of policies and procedures and those sorts of things. But what they did lack is to kind of really put all of the pieces together of the puzzle to really understand why incident management matters. They were really thinking the incident management piece only was occurring after an incident or a loss or an injury did occur. But actually incident management is really well before that and way beyond that. So this presentation was just put together to kind of address our client companies of understanding the importance of incident management and how they could better prepare themselves, their organizations, and their employees, or anyone tasked with executing health and safety within their ranks. So with that, we'll kind of get into the presentation here. Bear with me. Okay. The agenda today, we're going to go over the cost of incidents, the importance of early reporting, using what-if thinking instead, great coaches, the why question, task and corrective actions, and reporting. So let's get into the cost of incidents first. Everyone is well aware that if you do have an incident in some shape, form, or fashion, it is going to cost your organization. That's what we call direct cost, okay? What we're going to talk about in this section is that a lot of people do not plan on the indirect cost. So what do we mean by indirect cost? Well, when you think about it, direct and indirect costs, consider the ripple effect. The first effects of an incident are direct, and most companies anticipate them or have insurance program or other measures in place to protect them in the event that those happen. However, the effect on the incident doesn't end there, and it ripples out and causes indirect costs as well. The best course of action to avoid direct and indirect costs associated with the incident is really not to have an incident occur at all, but we are living in a real world and things do happen. So what do we mean by direct cost? The first effects of an incident are direct, and most companies anticipate them, they insure for them, or have other means of financial measures in place to protect them from that. Direct costs may include third-party liabilities such as property loss or damage, and even workers' compensation claims. Now keep in mind that the aging workforce does not recover from injuries as readily as they used to, and medical costs are soaring. So even once minor injuries are having serious financial implications for most organizations. We thought, before the mid-2000s that a lot of the aging workforce was going to cycle off, go into retirement mode, but we had an economic downturn that affected a lot of employees in different ways. So they stayed into the workforces longer. The reason that they're in it is, making up for retirement money lost because of their investments. They simply can't afford to retire. Savings outside of retirement vehicles such as 401k were used to kind of soften the blow of the economic downturn. And then also, too, the housing market nullified equity in their homes. And that was one of the majority of the reasons why people did stay into the workforce. From a risk management standpoint, management usually takes measures to protect their organization from direct cost, but in reality, direct cost is not really what kills an organization. It's the indirect cost. So what do we mean by indirect costs? First, understand that indirect costs usually are not insurable. These incident costs come directly from the company purse. So when an incident takes place, sure, there are adequate insurance coverages that might be in place to protect the organization, but again, they're not insurable. Just remember that whenever there is any type of incident or injury, there are always indirect costs associated. Indirect costs may include insurance premiums. When claims are reported, your experience modification increases. And in insurance lingo, this means that our premiums will rise in the future policy years. It works just like your regular auto insurance. The more accidents you have, the more your policy pays, and to your damage to your vehicle. And then you notice that the next year or year after, your insurance premiums go up. Another one is the insurability of the organization. Insurance carriers look at both your frequency, and that's how many incidents you have had, and the severity of how much did the direct cost of the insurance company, how much did the insurance company pay for them. The better frequency and severity rates, the more attractive you are to an insurance carrier, depends on how impacts your insurance premiums significantly. Okay, if they have a insurance prospect that has a high claim history, they might insure them, but it'll be at a higher rate. There's also even instances where the loss history of an organization throws them out of the primary insurance market and puts them into things like joint underwriting pools where your insurance premiums double, triple, and I've even seen them quadruple. From the production and delivery standpoint, whenever deliveries or production goes down, delays increase, and everybody understands that if you are pushing product or delivering services to a customer of yours, any delay does not make them happy at all. So that does have the effect. And then your training costs increase. You have to bring more people in. You have to replace the people who were injured or were affected by an injury. Your training costs increase of an organization, and just think about how many people are involved in the training process to get that new employee, or it could be a temporary employee or some other employee currently on your ranks to fill in for that position. The operational focus of your managers go down. Managers and supervisors are not paid to manage claims, or not paid to investigate claims. They have specific things with your organization that they must do. So when their operational focus goes down of really paying attention to things at task in hand, things can happen. It could be a breeding ground for more incidents to occur. And also with employee morale, you have at your organizations, you have a tight-knit group of employees, and it does have an impact when one of those employees are out or injured of how they work and kind of really that unit, from that unit element standpoint. The loss of use of equipment or machines, that's huge. If you don't have the equipment or machines or the vehicles for you to push your product out the door to deliver services, you know, that does have an effect on your bottom line. And then any time that you outsource any of your operations, there are definitely increased costs of that as well. The public relations thing has really come into the limelight here lately. You know, you had a comedian named Tracy Morgan who was involved in an accident, and when I do this seminar in front of people, I always ask, I was like, well, who hit Tracy Morgan? And the first words out of their mouth is the company responsible for hitting Tracy Morgan, and that was not the driver. So more and more public relations are having to repair these images of the company, and that's a substantial a cost for an organization to, you know, make their name whole again, or to defend any type of publicity out there that puts their organization in a negative light. And of course, regulatory fines. Regulatory fines are not insurable. Some inspector walks in because of an incident and does an inspection, the citations and the fines associated, those aren't insurable. You know, some organizations will have employees who are not necessarily out on the floor working, but they still are paying their employees. Well, they also have to pay employees that if you're bringing in any outside people to pay those employees, temporary or not. And then when you get to the employees, and we see this this is very common, that our natural instinct is that if you have an employee out, you just start spreading out their job duties across many different employees to ensure that the job can get done before, you know, until they can come back. The problem with that is that you can create a situation where employees have too many tasks, and there are ramifications in the organization. It could affect your quality. It could affect the speed that you get your products or services out there. Or, you know what, it can also, too, take their minds off task at hand and promote an injury type of environment. I always say this, and this has kind of been proven with some statistics from metrics that we've taken from BLS, is that pretty much for every $1 in direct cost produces $5 in indirect cost. So when we look at how an accident or an incident occurs, think of the domino theory. You've seen this before. This picture is worth 1,000 words. And this image explains the effects of an incident happening in your organization. Most processes and procedures are linear, meaning that one depends on another and must be done in sequential order. You can't load a truck unless an order has been picked. You can't pick orders unless you have no way to deliver it to your customers. So if one of the steps are disruptive, then other processes will incur problems. Incidents are no different. When an incident occurs, there is not just one domino falling, but that is not the first domino to fall. In fact, most dominoes, or many dominoes, have been falling before the incident actually occurred, and many will fall afterwards. So we're going to talk about the importance of early reporting. Let's begin by talking about incidents. What exactly are incidents? An incident includes both accidents, or in some organizations, it actually could be a near miss as well. How you define an accident depends on what you consider a loss, what you consider a near miss. But let me go into this a little bit. Despite their name, accidents are not really accidental. Instead, they are caused by failure to identify and address causal factors or root cause factors. We know incidents include both accidents and near misses, and we've talked about accidents already. Losses, no matter from your organization of how well your health and safety programs are designed, losses will still occur. It's very noble to have a goal that you don't want any incidents, any accidents to occur. The problem is that's not reality. The good organizations understand that losses still will occur, and they're focusing more of their efforts on what do we do after the accident and how do we improve conditions to prevent. So they use accidents or losses as learning moments. From the standpoint, though, that of course we don't want any losses to occur, what can we do as an organization to put ourselves in better position to prevent these things from happening? It's about near misses, okay? Near misses happen in your organization daily. Some organizations know about these near misses that happen. Most organizations do not. This could be an employee catching themselves before they actually do something improper. This could be a machine that might have broken down unless someone has caught it in time. Those are all considered near misses, and where organizations fail to put themselves in better position from losses to occur, they don't have a system in place to, one, identify a near miss, two, have a system to report a near miss, or even a system in place to learn from those near misses. And when we talk about learning from near misses, this is really just, it happens, let's just keep it amongst the people that it happened to or what department or what location. If there are duplicate exposure units throughout your organization, it's important for them to know what happened, how the organization responded to it, and how do we go forward to prevent this from happening again. Now, and I'm not saying that you push out the names and addresses of the people that were involved in, but just from the incident itself, what were the situations, what were the scenarios, and educate your employees on that. The really good organizations go a step further. Observations. They have a way to report observations. Observations are these things like, I saw a puddle of water on the floor, or I saw someone who was using their safety gear correctly. Observations don't always have to be negative. They can be positive as well. And in fact, your organization should be collecting more positive observations than negative observations, and that should be happening because human beings make more good decisions in a day than they do bad decisions. And you can learn from good observations just as effectively as you can from bad observations. But organizations that have committed to having a system and a protocol in place to collect observations are finding that their near-miss percentages are dropping, and of course, when that starts happening, your losses are also going to take a drop as well. How do you do that? Well, we're going to kind of get into it, and it's really more of a culture issue. It's more of a culture issue of your organization of how you historically have treated losses and near misses to compare it to where you need to be. But the good organizations are very good at collecting observations and acting upon them. When they see a trend in observations, they can say, hey, listen, we have seen more and more observations reporting this deficiency, and they can create events to better that or to eliminate that and go through the hierarchy of controls. And we'll get into the hierarchy of controls here in a little bit. Now, when we talk about proactive versus reactive approach, historically, and in the safety and health profession, we haven't really done ourselves any favor because we've been operating in this as well. You've heard of and you've seen it with your organizations or organizations you might have worked with before, that really when we start talking about health and safety, we start talking about prevention, it usually always happens when something has occurred, okay? We don't spring into action unless there's been a first aid claim, some type of workers' comp injury that resulted in lost time or created a disability or an injury or a fatality. But what we want to do is we want to kind of as an organization transform to more of a proactive approach to it. And then we just saw that is really more about collecting observations and learning from them and trending them to understand what really is going on in our facility before a loss occurs, and then also taking near misses and learning from them. So we can see that, from the triangle here, it goes up the triangle for, if you have a disability or fatality, and this is just metrics, this doesn't represent your individual organizations, But usually if something happens and you really had a system in place to kind of identify, and if you really think about this, there were probably numerous observations or clues that this was going to happen. This could be observations that were collected a year before and no action was taken. These could be near misses that have occurred here recently, but we just chalked them up to near misses and we fixed the problem. It won't ever happen again. Good companies operate below this red line. This is where they're putting most of their focus in for improving the health and safety management and performance of their organization. Is about near misses and observations, learning from them, reacting to them, and getting into that proactive mode. So commonly what happens is that that's all great. We have a system in place, but it's still not working. Well, it's a harder challenge for you to create a culture within your organizations that employees would report, okay? I walk into a lot of organizations that from a policy and procedure standpoint, they're set up very well. They have systems, they have things in place that would facilitate the reporting of observations and near misses. The problem is that they have a culture issue. They have a workforce for whatever reason is not buying into this philosophy, and there's some barriers. Now, what we're fixing to put up here is really from audiences that we've had. I'll be honest with you that this was really one slide, and then we started hearing different reasons of why employees wouldn't report. I think if you can get in your head right now, think of one thing or one reason why an employee would not report, it's probably going to be up on the screen here shortly. But just go ahead and think of one, and we'll kind of go through this. You can see there's a lot of obstacles to reporting, okay? The primary one we have is fear of disciplinary action or reprisal. This necessarily sometimes is not the fault of the current organization that they're working with, but historically viewpoints are brought into the business. What I mean by that is that you could have a great health and safety program and even an environment in which observation and near-miss reporting is highly encouraged and it's been working. But if you get an employee that has come from another employer that associates with, blowing the whistle on yourself or reporting an observation or a near miss is always going to result in disciplinary action, they're not going to report them. And they don't want to be negatively perceived by their peers as a do-gooder or a whistleblower or a rat. I tell you, if you have that type of mindset within your employee rank and file, that is a major sign of a culture problem within your organization. For some reason, employees don't want to do the right thing, or they could be perceived of not wanting to do the right thing. Each one of you, if you have an employee and you've probably had this talk with them at some point during their hiring process or when they're being trained a little bit more on their job description, is that you expect them, you have an expectation as an organization for them to do their job safely, and probably have communicated to them that if you see something that doesn't look right, come to your supervisor. Well, if they're not wanting to do the right thing out of fear that they're going to get a hard time, again, that is a major sign of a culture issue that you need to look at. We always hear, too, that oh, well, injuries just happen. That's part of the job. I do not buy into that philosophy whatsoever. There's no job designed out there that being injured or killed should be an expected outcome. You take a look at the most highly hazardous job descriptions out there that you can have in your mind, you're going to find that they have a low number of injuries or losses because they understand the risk and they do take the time and measures to protect their employees and themselves. Where we really hear this, well, it's just part of the job, are from organizations that you would never expect it from. And even some big name organizations, you would say, wow, I would have never expected that as well. don't treat that and don't ever accept the fact that injuries are just part of the job, okay? You can do, and your organization can take measures to protect your employees. Another reason is people don't really know the process of reporting. We got a lot of people that we're bringing on board, and we're talking to them about their HR benefits. We're talking to them about their number of days of vacation and things like that. And then when we go through their safety orientation, we're teaching them and we're talking them about, here are the rules you have to follow. Here's the exposures, the hazards that you have to look out for. But they never have the conversation that if something does happen, or if you see something that doesn't look right, or if you just see something that you think that could be a problem but you're not sure, a lot of companies haven't communicated what is the process for reporting. Some people may doubt that reporting will produce any meaningful results. We've seen this time and time again. The employee takes time to report something, observation, near miss, but it falls into a black hole. There's never any feedback of what they submitted. There's never any, hey, you know, great job, or hey, well, we really have reviewed what you have submitted and we're going to go forward, or we're not going to go forward. There's no communication. So when that happens, employees turn cynical on the process. And when they turn cynical on the process, they're going to start shutting down. They're going to figure out, hey, you know what, what's the point of doing this? I'm taking time to do it and never any action is happening. And that doesn't mean there has to be an action from the standpoint of something being corrected or addressed and taking what they're saying and doing exactly what they're saying of how they need to correct it. It's really more of just acknowledging that they have submitted something and talking through what they have seen to see if there could be some sort of action that's merited, okay? Some people may need to avoid the paperwork. They might say, I'm not going to report this because I don't want to fill out all these forms. The process to report is too cumbersome. I have to spend too much time on it. That's not a good thing, because you have an expectation as being their employer that they need to do these type of things. And some people believe that the current focus on safety will be short-lived, that flavor of the month club, that we don't ever hear about safety until something bad happens. Well, we need to change that mode of thinking to say, okay, we hear about safety all the time. We not only hear about the bad things that happen, but we also hear about the good things employees are doing to ensure that their workplace is healthy and safe. So how do you remove some of these obstacles? Recognize safe work as much or more than pointing out what needs to be improved. Positive observations should kind of outnumber your negatives at a 3-to-1 ratio. There's a lot of people in your organization that are doing good things. And there's a lot of people that, because they're doing those good things, it should be a call to management to take a look of them doing good things and go back and look at their operating procedures to see if that's reflected. I've seen many positive observations that come in that supervisors or managers say, you know what, that is a smarter way to do it. We've gone through the risk analysis on it. They're presenting no any additional dangers, or actually what they're doing is lessening the dangers associated with the job or task. And they make changes to their standard operating procedures based upon those. So good observations do have more of an impact, or potential more impact, than your negative ones. Ensure communication of issues and finding across all sites and departments and levels of organization. Make sure, have every location learn from another one. Make sure you have a system in place. Make sure it's consistent. Make sure you have some sort of standardized reporting procedure that all your organizations, if you have multi-locations or multi-offices, will be able to decipher. Recognize employees for reporting and being part of it. Include them, rely on them, and trust them. I can't emphasize this point enough. If you do not have the help of your rank and file employees with your health and safety program, it is a guarantee that it will fail. You need to bring them in on the process. You need to recognize them for doing things, and you know what? Even task them to do things from safety and health. It doesn't have to be only a manager. It doesn't have to be only a safety professional. It needs to be everyone in your organization. Somebody, everyone, has to have a skin in the game. And when we talk about it making safe to report, kind of goes back into that I'm going to get in trouble if I find something, if I did something wrong and I report on my own or I tattletale on myself. Your organization needs to come up with a policy that if a true near miss does occur, if it's reported within 48 hours, we treat that as a learning moment, okay? Now, that is not saying that if they're doing something that's willful or totally or deliberate or totally against the policy or the procedures that you established that there's no, disciplinary action. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is this is for true accidents that they are not meaning to do, okay? Encourage them to report that, and if they report that within that 48-hour time period, they at least have some type of knowledge knowing that if I do that, I'm not going to get in trouble, but I might have to talk through it and explain what I did, but learn from those conversations as an organization and ensure that these type of near misses don't occur. And the only way you can do that is not only by educating the employee on the exposures, but also educating on the near miss. Hey, we almost had this happen. We need to, and you know what, a lot of people in an organization might have made the same mistake. We need to go ahead and get that information out there, and let's use this as a learning moment to improve. So again, without frontline employee involvement in your health and safety program, we're talking about observation reporting, near miss reporting. It will fail. Your injury and incident reduction efforts, they will fail. And then if you have an EHS person, or even if you're tasked with the EHS duties, you will fail. So it's important to keep everybody on the same page and to get as many people involved as often as possible. So great coaches, it's one thing to have employees that you might supervise from the standpoint of their everyday job description. There's good managers out there that can teach their employees in their sleep and quite effectively of how to do their job. Okay, when we start talking about safety, it's really not more of a training issue, it's more of a coaching issue. We train our employees to operate a piece of equipment. We train them on a process. What we need is a coach to affirm that what they have been taught or trained on is actually good, but to kind of facilitate them to use their noodle a little bit and understand that to increase their awareness so that they can understand or know what to apply of what they've been trained on. Okay, so what does it take to be a good coach? I think this is a pretty good list here, and how this slide got developed is that we asked people in our audiences to think about your best supervisor ever, and what would be one trait that you could use to describe him or her and why you liked them so much or why you thought they were so effective. And pretty much it was kind of mind-blowing of, we would have some of these outliers of, oh, he used to take me out to lunch all the time or whatever, but it was kind of surprising to see how they started falling in relatively the same. Being open-minded. A good coach has a great open mind, and to have an open mind, that means you get a lot of information coming in. You're not going to make a decision or bring in any type of prejudices of what you think happened. Have an open mind about it. Any type of recommendations for improvement. Have an open mind about it and walk through the process. Good coaches think ahead. They always search for why and how things happen. They recognize the positive in every situation. They're open to input from others. They have a mindset of a helper and not a cop. They have the ability to communicate. They have ability to connect with their employees to get their point across in the most constructive way, right? We probably have worked, or we've played athletics. We've had good coaches that, although they could be stern, they did teach you some lessons not only about the sport that you were playing, but also some life lessons as well. That's because they're a good communicator. Be okay if you are in a role of supervising someone and you're tasked to do an inspection or or to QA some work and stuff. Be okay with finding nothing wrong. And I think this is an environment that which we created for ourselves as managers, supervisors, safety professionals, that if we go on an inspection and we come back without any findings, it's interpreted by our supervisors that we didn't do our job. Don't fall into that trap. It's perfectly okay that if you don't see anything wrong, you don't make up something that's wrong, okay? How that works is, and I work for somebody like this, is that I could go through and my little checklist and everything was absolutely correct. All my machine was up and running, the inspection logs were current, everything was in place. And we would have an inspector that comes by and says, well, yes, you have everything in place, but I'm going to make a recommendation for you, and it would be something off the wall. So there was like a no-win situation. Don't be one of those people, because what will happen is that from the quality standpoint, the employees will say, well, what's the point? They're going to find something wrong anyway. Don't fall into that trap of thinking that you always have to find something wrong. They're hyper-aware of hazards. They empower other employees to get involved into the process, as well as make suggestions, or, that we can kind of really translate this to delegation. They empower other employees to do some things. They're an expert in their field, and they trust their instincts. So they have good conversations. They're okay with finding nothing wrong, and correct items on the spot, but still document for trending purposes. And what I mean by that is that from the standpoint, if you're going to coach your employees on health and safety, and we're talking about observations and near misses, it's one thing, and it's awesome that they correct things on the spot, but still document what they did. If it was an observation and it was a find and fix it, of course, but do not report it, because that could be a valuable piece of information or even a missing piece of the puzzle of a bigger problem. Always encourage employees that even if they fix something, still report it. Getting a little behind on time here, but we're going to go into what-if thinking. What-if thinking is a state of mind, okay? When an injury or an incident occurs, when we go through an investigation process, we are really laser focused on what happened, when it happened. But we really don't go into the thinking of the where, when, how, and who. And this what-if thinking mentality is that if you are looking at a particular hazard exposure, it could be an observation, you don't see something as it needs to be, you're saying, well, you know what, that looks unsafe. Go through the what-if thinking. What if that box that's hanging halfway off the rack fell? What if it hit someone? How much damage would it do? If it fell off and hit a forklift, what would happen? Use this what-if thinking. And then when you start using the where, when, how, and who will, where will, when will, how will, you can start expanding as you're going through an incident investigation of really narrowing down some of the causal factors or root cause factors associated with why something happened. Or it could be a trend in your observations or near misses that you're investigating. We had a client that turned in, one of their employees out in the field turned in this hook, and they said the hook was faulty. As a safety professional, when I look at this hook, I do not see a faulty hook. I see a nightmare. Because let's just say this hook, and anybody who understands metal and steel, if this was a one-time incident and this hook to the left was bent, you would see some stress fractures or some brighter metal that would show that, okay, this was a one-time trauma event. What scares me about this is that we don't see anything like that. And this hook has probably been used over and over and over again and was just turned in because it could no longer perform the job. I'm asking myself these questions. Why did it take so long to get this hook turned in? Do we have a policy or do we have an inspection process for these hooks on our hoist to ensure that something like this doesn't happen? Okay, there's a lot of problems, and there's a big story to tell with the condition of this hook. This probably is a facility that will do work and only report things when it is a problem that inhibits them from doing their work. That's not a facility that you want. I also see other issues in this. Well, are we not cognizant of the weight capacities of the loads that we're lifting? Why is this hook being used? What is the condition of the cable that it was attached to? If there's a stress in this hook right here, those cables probably aren't looking well either. So this should be a lot of clues as you get into an investigation of just trying not to narrow down that, how did this hook get bent? But asking it a different way of how did it get bent from the standpoint of, are we aware of our weight capacities? Or do we have an inspection system into place? There's a lot of clues that you can get from this. So we're going to go into the why thinking. A lot of organizations, when we talk about health and safety, they see a Jenga tower. And they see this tower that has all the blocks in there. This is strong. If I set a glass of water on the top of this thing and I didn't push it side to side, it would sit on there, it would support it, nothing would happen, okay? We think that our health and safety programs or standard operating procedures look like this. In reality, they look like this, okay? If we were looking top down at that management view, we would see those 3 Jenga blocks on top. We would look at it and say, hey, it looks strong, it looks secure. But when we change our vantage point of this tower, we can see that there's missing pieces, things that might not have been addressed. And unfortunately, we'll call this an injury. We can see that there are missing administrative policies. We might be missing PPE. We might be missing whatever else, machine guards. But when that employee pulls out that one block or any of the blocks that causes the tower to fall, we're so quick to blame the employee that they are the reason why this incident occurred, when in fact they could be walking into one of these situations, okay? So from the standpoint of that and always blaming the employee, we're so quick to chalk up something due to human error, an employee not paying attention. I ask you this question: policies, procedures, things that we must follow to ensure that we are doing our job safely and correctly. Who are those authored by? They're authored by human beings. And stop and think that there could be a problem with the policy, the procedure, the SOP. So before you blame the employee, I would take a look to see, are there any other issues? And through a good root causal investigation, you could probably accomplish that, okay? So the blame cycle happens. So we have this employee, they just pulled the block out, the tower collapsed, okay? We always chalk this up to human error. So when that happens, unwarranted discipline. That employee could be following the policy, to the T. And if they truly believe they didn't do anything wrong and they were just doing what they were told, or they were just following the procedures that were in place, unwarranted discipline happens. And when that happens, you have reduced trust in your employees, the communication decreases, management awareness, the managers, that your awareness suffers. If you're not knowing what's going on out there in the field or what's happening every day, your awareness suffers. And finally, the system weaknesses persist, and it's this cycle. It never ends unless you can break it. Remember this. Now, we had worked with a research company, and one of them is well known in the safety industry, a guy by the name of Dr. Todd Conklin. He did a real candid look and study on incidents that were occurring at Los Alamos National Laboratories. And basically, what he came up with is that a lot of the ones that were chalked up to human error really did not have anything to do with human error. It was more process related. Remember, as managers, supervisors, as organizations, we're creating the environments in which our employees work. We're the ones that are introducing hazards and exposures by the type of equipment we use, by the chemicals that we're using, whatever. He's found out that really it's not always the person, but there's many, many different issues with the processes in place. And really the employee was just a victim of the circumstances of inadequate process. So if we're so quick to chalk up everything to human error, we need to take a look in the mirror and look at our policies and procedures that were written by human beings, because that could also be the error as well. So refining your investigative approach. The principles of investigative mindset. Always work with investigation teams when we're training them and trying to get them up to speed to be better investigators. I was like, you have to come into an investigation with these 4 mindsets: that all accidents can be prevented, addressing causes will prevent similar accidents, failures are rooted in work systems. You might go through your investigation and find out it's not in a work system, and it truly is an investigator, truly is an employee or a human error, but come into the investigation thinking that it is a problem with the work system, okay? And finally, that people generally mean to do well. I'm not talking about everyone, because we do have people out there that make a living off of workers' comp injuries and stuff, but majority of wise, when you come into work every day, you generally mean to do well. You do not mean anything malicious. You don't plan on creating an incident just to get a payout. People generally mean to do well. So as we're doing investigations, we get to the point, and you know, our longer presentation, that's usually a 4-hour seminar, kind of goes through these investigations, and part of the exercises we do with our trainees is that now that you did the investigation and you identified some of the causal factors, or start proposing corrective actions to address those issues, we need to start taking them through a hierarchy of control. Now, there's many different models out there. There's a 4-step model. I've even seen a 3-step model. But really, any time that you have a solution, a corrective action that addresses some type of incident or finding out there from an inspection, take it through the hierarchy of control phase, right? And that is elimination, getting rid of it, outsourcing it, physically remove it, substituting, and that could be replacing with a safer alternative. And we see this a lot with, you know, chemicals. Is there a safer chemical we can use into this process? The engineering controls, that's when we start getting into machine guarding, or we start getting into barriers that isolate people from the hazard. Barrier could even be those restricted access signs that you see, that nobody can pass this point. Administrative controls, these could be standard operating procedures. Any changes in those. Administrative controls is also training and signs and labels that would be put up. And finally, personal protective equipment. Personal protective equipment is the white flag, okay? You want to go through these steps above before you get to PPE. You want to eliminate that hazard maybe, so no PPE is required. But when you start saying that we need you to use PPE, that's kind of the white flag saying, you know what, we've gone through the first 4 steps. There's no way we can address it anywhere. So the better to protect the employee, there has to be some type of degree of personal protective equipment put in place, okay? A lot of times, too, regulation will require that there is already PPE in place, and there's nothing you can do about that. But when you start going through the hazard and want to start saying, well, maybe we should start having these people wear this particular PPE, don't go down that route. Go through these steps first, and if you get to PPE as being the only corrective action that's viable and feasible, you go with that. But remember, that is the very last thing you want to do. So when we talk about how an incident occurs, and we look at those engineering controls, administrative controls, basically what will happen is the blue arrows represent at-risk work. We could do a risky work behavior, and maybe the engineering control can catch it. Sometimes the engineering control can't catch it, but maybe the administrative control does. But there are those instances where things line up, and the controls that you have in place, an incident still does occur. It's kind of that Swiss cheese model like you're looking at. If the holes align, there is possible. The point you want to try to make when you're going through the hierarchy of controls is to eliminate enough of these, eliminate a lot of these holes within the cheese. You want to have something that can cover or address it so an incident didn't occur. And that kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier about the what-if thinking, the when will, who will, how will. That helps you address these type of incident or situations and keeping from those holes aligning. So when we talk about task management, a corrective action is basically the action at the end of the day. How did we correct this thing ultimately? But within a corrective action, there could be many tasks associated with it. Whenever you do tasks, don't assign tasks from the standpoint of, okay, I assign you to fix this issue. Divvy up your tasks to where you know they can be completed within a 48-hour time period. And what I mean by that is, the old way is we have a forklift example, and the forklift is out of service. That one task could be pending mass failure needs to be repaired, and the OOS is out of service. The new way is to structure your task to ensure that things can be done within 48-hour time periods. It's very well possible that you could have an issue or have a corrective action goal to fix a forklift or put it back in service. But if it sits on your desk or it sits inside a piece of software, it sits on your Post-it notes, it can fall through the cracks. The point is for everyone, if you operate in the 48-hour time frame of every task can be completed within 48 hours, what happens is that you're in essence kind of structuring a list of steps to get to the ultimate corrective action of putting the forklift back in service. And you're also instilling an accountability in each of the employees that you might be assigning that corrective or that task back out to. So from the reporting standpoint, why does reporting matter? Well, this could be a reporting from the injury, a near miss, or an observation. It's basically the vehicle of how you can start identifying trends. If you start seeing the same things happen over and over and again, and you have a reporting mechanism in place, you can start trending this data. You can start trending these incidents, and you can take corrective action. It exhibits an organizational commitment. Usually reporting is outlined in a policy or procedure of what you must do, when you must do it, how often you must do it, when you must do it, why you must do it, right? It exhibits an organizational commitment that there is a process in place for reporting. It increases the visibility of issues for prompt corrective actions. It also is used correctly. It can help with the learning and awareness issues. So if I have a bunch of observations coming in about people not wearing personal protective equipment by operating a certain machinery, and I go through the causal analysis and figure out, well, you know what, in fact, they do need PPE, I need to use that as a learning moment. I can assign them training, I can talk with them in instructor-led training, toolbox talks, however you might be, but it does affect your learning and awareness, and it actually really enhances it as well. And it also shares best practices across the organization. So what makes a good report? Remember, when you're filling out a report, you're in essence filling out a legal document. A report is not to be used as a speculation, okay? State what you saw, explain what you did, describe what needs to be done, be clear, concise, and specific, and always be objective. So really, responsibilities are for you, lead by example, live it, breathe it, understand it, follow it, be an example to all of your employees or be an example to your managers and supervisors about doing your job safely and healthy, okay? Create an open learning environment for your organization. Use incidents, use near misses, use observations to better educate your workforce. Be consistent when it comes to health and safety. Avoid that flavor of the month club type of mentality. Believe that there's always a safer way to accomplish tasks, and trust and rely on your subject matter experts. And those are your employees, the ones who do this job each and every day, rely on them, and trust them. And with that concludes the presentation, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Great. Thank you so much, Eric. If you have any questions for Eric, there is a chat feature on your GoToMeeting panel on the right side of your screen. Feel free to go ahead and enter your questions there, and Eric can address them. And as we're waiting for some questions to pop up, I just wanted to let everyone know that we have approximately 50 different courses available from UL Workplace in our marketplace on Coggno.com. And I'll be emailing everyone information about them along with a 30% discount later today. So you can use that yourself or share it with your colleagues who weren't able to attend today's event. I do have a question here just asking if you can download the presentation. Yes, there will be a recording that I'll send, and I'll also send the slide deck to you, to everyone who's attended. So thank you for asking that question. Looks like there is another question here. It says, Eric, this question is, my organization has not incurred a loss in 4 years, and we do not collect observations or report near misses. If you were a safety professional with my organization, would you be comfortable with that performance, or would you be concerned?
The answer to that question, I would think just because of me being in the safety and health profession, I would be more concerned with that. I just know statistics, I know odds, and I know probability. I would really kind of question to see if that is really truly the case. We constantly strive as safety professionals to keep incidents from occurring. And we do a pretty little nasty trick on ourselves that if we ever did get to a point where incidents occurred, we would get very nervous because we're like, okay, wait a minute. I know we were driving towards that for nothing to occur, but now that we're there, oh my gosh, that scares me even more. I would take a look at this. I think it's really more about getting some validity to see if that truly is the case. Ensure, I would be asking the questions, well, is everything being reported? Do I have a system in place that is preventing or discouraging people from reporting? I would take a look at a lot of different issues to really dot the I's and cross the T's and ask the questions that I might have of the reason why we have 0 incidents happening. You know what, it very well could be too that you truly don't have an incident, and you might be thinking that an incident is only something that incurs a loss. But you know what, if you focus on the incident part, there is definitely a lot of observations out there that you could be collecting and taking action on and avoiding just springing into action when the incidents do occur. So I guess the answer to that question is it would put me more of an investigative mode to really verify if that truly is the case. So it kind of would scare me.
Okay, great. We have another question here, and then we're just about ready to wrap up. This question is, in your experience of helping organizations better their health and safety cultures, what is the most consistent thing you see wrong when you first start working with them?
I would probably say that it's the going past, we already know the reason that we're in there is to improve their health and safety culture. So, I mean, I guess that would be the first thing, that they don't have a culture to support it. But, factoring that part out, it's really more about the management commitment. And what I mean by that is that if we start talking to safety professionals and even frontline supervisors or mid-level managers, they get it. They get it that because they live and breathe and eat and sleep around these exposures every day, they understand the importance of safety. Sometimes they lapse in that judgment, but they holistically know the importance of it. A lot of times is that even when the safety and health professional or downwards on the chain of command are doing the right thing or want to do the right thing, there's a huge obstruction in upper level management. they always start talking about, well, what's the return on investment that we have if we do make these changes, or ultimately, how would it benefit our organization? One of the biggest things that we have a hard time as safety professionals, especially if we're working with EHS coordinators in a respective company, is that they're very good from a technical standpoint. They know the laws, they know the regulations, they know the processes and procedures, they know their health and safety programs, but the element that they're missing is the political element. And what I mean by that is that safety is politics. There is a time where, from a regulation standpoint, you have to do things. But when you start talking about improvements or betterments, you gotta play the political game a little bit. You have to understand what kind of jerks the chain of that upper level management. They're going to want you to come in with an ROI statement of what the benefits are. I think really the biggest hurdle is getting those safety and health professionals to that point, understand what metrics can they use, how can they convert those metrics into an ROI statement, and the statement varies from organization to organization. So yeah, hopefully that answered that question.
All right, great. Well, Eric, I want to thank you very much for joining us today and presenting your webinar to us. There was a lot of very useful information. If anyone has any questions that you think of after the webinar and you wanted me to get those over to Eric, be sure to email me. Again, the email is info@coggno.com, and I can get those over to Eric, and he'll be able to help you. Now, Eric, before I let you go, is there anything in closure for the webinar that you wanted to say about any other services that you have to offer with UL, anything of that nature?
Yeah, sure. Again, we love being associated with your organization. From the standpoint of the training and the e-learning piece, just want to let everyone know that if you are utilizing any of our content, or if you are having any thoughts of possibly using the health and safety content with Coggno, just know that if it's a UL Workplace Health and Safety course, these are internally developed within our organization. We have 5 on-staff safety professionals that our job and responsibility, in addition to others, are building these courses from the standpoint of, from a regulatory standpoint and learning objective standpoint, to turn over to our professional learning services to bring the course to life. So you do have safety and health experts that are building these courses. We're not outsourced, and we're very proud of our content. And I don't know if any of you have ever used it. I think you can kind of understand, and if you definitely haven't used it before, definitely reach out and grab it. It's good stuff.
Oh, that's great, and that builds a lot of confidence in the product that you offer. And
yeah,
we're also very proud that you're one of our main safety authors. So thank you so much, Eric and UL. So in closing then, if there is any specific training need that you might have, feel free to email me. We have a great team. We're always happy to provide recommendations and solutions. Also, if you'd like any information about partnering with Coggno, it's a great way to earn some extra revenue for your company. And I can provide you information on being a Coggno partner. So I do thank you again for joining today's webinar, and I hope to see you at a future Coggno webinar event. Thank you so much, and you have a great day.